This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Today's episode of the Motor City Sports Rant is brought to you by The Athletic. Premium coverage for passionate Detroit sports fans. Listeners of this podcast can save 30% off the first year of an annual subscription by going and visiting theathletic.com/DSP. That's theathletic.com/DSP. They got great writers. They cover all the major Detroit sports. And this fall, they got writers covering Michigan and Michigan State football. Don't miss out. All the hosts here on this podcast network, we read The Athletic every single day. Become a subscriber, save 30%. All you got to do is go visit theathletic.com/DSP.
Detroit is the greatest! Straight up light you on fire for a Coney dog right now.
Darren McCarty comes back to Neiman in front of him. McCarty draws. McCarty in. McCarty scores! A magnificent goal! Darren McCarty!
Stafford takes, throws, end zone, Calvin, touchdown, Detroit Lions!
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Motor City Sports Rant on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. As you can see by me not sounding all gravelly and phony, I'm actually in studio, and it's me, your host, Jason Jarvie.
Go Lions! Yeah!
Yes, I am very excited about the Lions. You can follow me on Twitter at Jarvie the King, and with me, who's also very excited about the Lions. He is at full mast. John, the Doc Macaroon. What's up, sir?
Jason, you're here. It's great. We can finally break down preseason football. I mean, the Lions playing on Friday made it really interesting because everybody watched the whole slate of games that took place on Thursday. We got to see Baker Mayfield, Saquon Barkley, and we got to see a bunch of other preseason games. And then the Lions came on 10:30 at night, and everybody was kind of peeking into what was going on. And then all of a sudden, news reports started to come out that it looks like Stafford's in a hat, doesn't look like he's a guy that's going to play at all. Then it's game time, and Stafford doesn't play at all, and everybody was like, uh-oh, we don't get a chance to see Matthew Stafford. That's all we really wanted to see was one series where maybe he takes a shot, similar to what Derek Carr did. He tried to throw it deep to Martavis Bryant. It didn't connect. That's all we really wanted to see was maybe
that a pass interference, by the way?
Ooh, that was interesting, huh? It could have been called, but in the end, the way football should be played, I'm glad it was a no call.
It was an interesting no call. It looked like you ran into him. Like, if that was me, I probably would have called that pass interference.
But there was no Stafford, and we got a chance to watch the game. It was Castle and Rudock. The one thing I was telling friends and people, I was like, we all know that if Stafford goes down, the season's over. But didn't part of you feel disappointed? I know you were hard on Matt Castle saying prior to even Rudock getting into the game, let's just make Rudock the backup because Castle looks awful. I was disappointed because I didn't see the level of competition. Like, don't Rudock and Castle want to battle Stafford? I know the perception and the reality is they will never get on the field because of Stafford's contract, but I was greatly disappointed in their play because of the fact that I just want them to see, I wanted it to feel like they were competing.
It was even more disappointing because you got to see on the other side of the ball, Connor Cook come in for the Oakland Raiders, the former Michigan State Spartan. And that's a guy who I felt he got done dirty in his draft class. I think he went way too late. And then he goes to a team that already has a franchise quarterback in Derek Carr. But you see Connor Cook up there, he's moving in the pocket. And he looks like he can definitely be a legitimate NFL backup quarterback, and he can probably start some games. So, yeah, it's seeing Matt Castle out there, the way he threw the ball, it was disgusting. I couldn't stomach him throwing the ball.
Now, before we get into our opinions on the game, because we have to give them, are you one of those reporters or podcasters that say, look, either way, positive or negative, what happens in the preseason is all vanilla. Even guys like Matt Patricia, John Gruden, they're not really showcasing everything that they're going to do. The ones only play a series or two max. And I know you're evaluating talent that likely is going to be packing meat at somewhere else in the next 5 weeks. But at the same time, you do start to see trends when you see the Oakland Raiders being able to run up and down the field, and you see the defensive front seven for the Lions give up a chunk play to Marshawn Lynch. Everybody saw that play and was like, wait a minute, that was a problem last year. It continued to be a problem preseason game one. You don't have to be great and limit Oakland to like -5 yards rushing, but you don't also have to go out there and look like you're totally inept. So I guess what I'm asking is, as a fan, I'm a fan, what's the rational way of evaluating a preseason game? Because I was like, what the hell? The defensive front seven looked terrible.
I think, especially in this first game, you have to give them a little bit of leeway in the first game because they're still gelling. It's really their first game action that they aren't going up against the same players every time. You know, they had some joint practices with the Raiders leading up to that game, but you couple the fact that it's the first preseason game and that they're not going to show you everything. They're going to give you a very base defense, and that's what you get. You do, and I think you also have to keep in mind that I think this front seven is going to struggle this year. I mean, I'm not sure if they're going to be the worst in the NFL like they have been in seasons past, but you look along that defensive front seven, and there are issues there. I mean, you got Ziggy Ansah. You're not sure what he's going to be this year. You got Kerry Hyder coming back from his ACL injury. You're not sure what he's going to be this year. A'Shawn Robinson, you're hoping that you're going to get something out of them. And then in the linebacking crew, you want Jared Davis to be better. And then it's really you're filling holes with Devin Kennard and Christian Jones and Jalen Reeves-Maybin. While it is a vanilla defense, I'm not concerned because I know that this is going to be a struggle point for this defense. We're really going to have to rely on the defensive backfield being able to shut down quarterbacks, and we're going to have to. This team has been built to score points, and that's what we're going to see this year, I think.
Man, it was one of those things where I understand what you're saying in that the likelihood of some of these guys on the defense being there when the season starts is low, but at the same time, when you look at overall scheme, you want the Lions to be able to run the football and stop the run. That should be key numbers 1 and 2 in this year, 2018. And obviously, you were able to run the football. You saw that Amir Abdullah was being featured, maybe potentially traded. But you did see early on, you saw LeGarrette Blount, and he was able to get some yards. And then you saw finally Kerryon Johnson, his first play from scrimmage that he was able to partake in, plus 12 yards. It was nice. He looked like he had a little bit of slipperiness. He looked like an NFL running back, and he looked like he was up to the task. And that was nice to see. Amir Abdullah had made some plays. LeGarrette Blount made some plays. The offense looked okay at times. But in all, when I looked at the performance, it just kind of seemed like, well, there's a lot of penalties being taken by both teams. It seems sloppy. It doesn't seem organized. Now, I know it's just an organized scrimmage in essence, but I was a little disappointed that it wasn't really a clean game. A lot of penalties. It was like an hour and 45-minute first half. It took forever. There was no real flow. And I just thought with Matt Castle knowing Matt Patricia and maybe getting into that offense, with the capability that they have, Galladay kind of had some drops, and that could be a concern going forward. I mean, Chris Spielman was kind of pinpointing and saying, hey, this guy should be able to make some plays. So that was a guy I was a little bit disappointed in. And you go, I just wish that the performance, now, it didn't have to be A+. I just wish it was above like a C+.
You can want that. And I know you're going to be disappointed, and I know fans are going to be disappointed, but you just have to relax at this point. You really do. You need to take these games really with a grain of salt, because what the preseason really is for is to round out the rest of your team. It's not really about seeing what your first and second string players can do, because you should already know what they can do. You know what Matt Stafford's going to do. You know what Golden Tate and Marvin Jones, those guys are going to do for you. It's really trying to find those third and fourth string players that will be able to round out your team, and hopefully if you do suffer an injury or a setback, that those guys can come in and actually be able to play and contribute, and so there really isn't that loss of the good player that you had.
Was there a player that stuck out to you on offense or defense that you said, oh, okay, this guy looks like he knows what he's doing?
On the field, I guess, I think looking at the numbers, the guy who probably made the most impact, I'd say, would be Frank Ragnow, your number one pick. He did a really solid job playing at left guard. think we'll see throughout the rest of this preseason that he's gonna be a solid pick, and then our offensive line, if they can stay healthy, will actually be able to do something. And this you couple this with maybe we actually have a run game with LeGarrette Blount and Kerryon Johnson that maybe we can actually be in the top half of running offenses as opposed into the bottom half, even into the bottom 5.
So you're saying Frank Ragnow, offensive lineman, looks the part?
I think so. I think he's, at least where he is right now at left guard, I think he's going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Okay, now everybody's talking about it, and it is a really solid talking point. People are trying to decide what they want to do with the running back situation. And I feel like everybody that kind of weighed in on it earlier today on our Twitter page, at Detroit Podcast, on the radio station, other podcasts, I really feel like they overcomplicated a lot of their analysis regarding the running backs. Okay, let's break it down. You have LeGarrette Blount and you have Kerryon Johnson. Those two guys should make the team. Okay?
1A and 1B.
1A and 1B. Now, are they featuring Amir Abdullah? It's possible. He did himself a favor. I feel like he was featured in the return game. He didn't fumble the football all that much. He didn't make plays that really hurt the football team. He looked like, okay, a guy that you could maybe package in a trade. I feel like that's what was taking place, that he was used and featured so that people could see what he was doing, put some good film out there. Now, I feel like the running back situation is quite simple. I don't feel like you're going to keep 4 running backs, 5. I don't feel like the competition between Dwayne Washington, Zach Zenner, Amir Abdullah really needs to be talked about. I feel like what you can do effectively is you got potentially starters is LeGarrette Blount and Kerryon Johnson. Theo Riddick is your third down back. He's the change of pace guy. Should any one of those guys get hurt, you can, plug and play him. And then you pick one of the best 2, Agnew or Amir Abdullah, that you think is the best for the football team, and you cut the rest. Period. I mean, you got 3 to 4 guys that you have on the roster that can be part of the team. You can put Zach Zenner on the practice squad. You can let go of Dwayne Washington. He's made minimal impact. I don't see him cracking this lineup and being a major player outside of a significant couple of injuries. So I feel like the running back situation, while it's being widely debated, it's quite simple.
So how many running backs are you looking to actually keep on this team?
I'm looking to keep 3 running backs. And you look at it and you say, okay, if Amir Abdullah is on the team, I think he's in competition in special teams with Agnew. I know Agnew is a great corner and looking to make plays in the secondary. But if they keep Amir Abdullah, I see him being utilized more for special teams and in-case scenario as insurance should one of the big 3 go down. So I'm looking to keep 3, and I feel like the competition at special teams is between Agnew and Amir Abdullah.
So you see Kerryon Johnson, LeGarrette Blount, Theo Riddick. You keep Amir Abdullah, who's still going to be a running back. Do you want a fullback on this team?
You could use him. You could use Ballore if he does a good job throughout the preseason.
So I know you got Ballore, and then you got that Nick Bodden guy who's currently on IR. But I'm okay with it. I'm fine. I'm done with the Zach Zenner and the Dwayne Washington. Those guys, they don't have any value.
Don't you see Jamal Agnew being a guy that was a little bit better in the return game last year? I mean, he had
obviously Jamal Agnew. He should be on the team. He's going to be the return guy if he's healthy. And outside of being like a weapon or like somebody that you throw in for 1 or 2 plays a game on offense, he's not going to really get that much time on offense. You're going to put him in there as a change, not even a change of pace. It's almost like a wildcat situation where you put him in the backfield. You put him and Kerryon Johnson in the backfield, and it's going to be who's going to get the ball, or you split them both out wide, and you got to cover somebody. So
yeah, I just remember last year Jamal early on when he was inserted was averaging about 18 to 20 yards per return, and he quickly started scoring touchdowns. So that's why when the game started and you started to see Amir Abdullah, everybody started talking about, oh, he's being featured. But I feel like it should be just a competition between Agnew and Amir Abdullah, and whoever's the best stays on the team. Period.
I mean, I feel like they're both going to make the team, though.
Okay, that's how you feel? You feel
they're both going to make the team. I mean, Amir Abdullah, he showed at least enough, I think, in this game that he's a viable running back in the NFL. And when he is healthy, I think he does have the ability to be a good running back. I will stand by that.
So how do you think it'll shake out? How do you think the running back situation will shake out when the Lions make their decisions?
I think you'll see Kerryon Johnson and LeGarrette Blount. They'll split duties. I think Theo Riddick will be the receiving back. They'll probably use him also in slot positions. If you line up 4 wide receivers, he may line up as a wide receiver. And then you keep Amir Abdullah on there because I think he would be, if Kerryon Johnson were to go down, you would want to have that other guy because LeGarrette Blount, I think he's a good bruising, he's a good north-south runner. He's not an every down back. He's not a 3-down running back. I think you need to have, when you have these running back by committees, you need to have another guy to back up. So I think Amir Abdullah will be that guy. Unless he gets traded.
See, look in the papers. Lions focused on fixing sloppy run defense. I mean, Jason, it's really important. That's how you stop opposing offenses. That's how you can get your defense off the field. That performance can be used by a lot of teams in terms of tape, and I do think it's going to be an issue throughout the season. It's just a big time glare when everybody saw, like, oh my gosh, that penalty that was taken by Oakland negated a huge run by Marshawn Lynch, but the ability to tackle was not evident on that play.
If teams use this game as tape to try to base their game plans on the Lions, they're going to be behind the times because it's the first game of the preseason, John.
Now,
come on, man.
But we did talk about themes regarding Matt Patricia's defense, and the theme that I kept hashtagging throughout the night as I kept seeing chunk play after chunk play was bend, don't break. You saw parts of that. I mean, they didn't give up a massive amount of touchdowns. They gave up a bunch of yards, but they, stopped the opponent when needed. So seeing it in that context, would you be okay with seeing a defense like that where opponents have a huge number of yards? Because everybody said Matt Patricia's defenses early in the seasons look a little bit confusing and they look terrible, but throughout the course of the season, they learn and they clamp down, they force more turnovers, they do a lot better job as the season progresses. Knowing that, when I kept hashtagging it made me feel better. Like, okay, as long as they don't give up touchdowns, they just give up field goals, I can live with crooked numbers in terms of yards given up, pass plays, time on the field, all that, as long as you give Stafford the chance to be in the games more often than not.
Obviously, I'm absolutely fine with that because we've seen what he did in New England with the players that he's had, and it's always been, they always come out on the right side of things.
Guess how many yards per carry the Lions gave up last year after Haloti Ngata was injured, the final 11 games?
5.2.
Yes, Jason, you're very close. Prior to Haloti Ngata getting hurt, the Lions were giving up 3.3 yards per carry. Afterwards, it jumped to 5.5 yards a carry per average run play, and it looked similar in the preseason game, so it's very important. You got to work together, and especially the concern is this. You got a new defensive system. You got a new defensive coordinator. So, yes, ideally, we all think, okay, it's going to gel. The Lions are going to work together. But should there be an injury to that defensive front seven? Should some things happen? There are some good running backs in the NFC North, and there's some good running backs across the entire NFL. So you got to shore that up because otherwise, if you don't, you're going to have quarterbacks just handing the ball off, and the defense will get tired. And then once you show that you can't stop the run, boom, it opens up the play action for the opponent, and boom, you give up big plays.
Yeah, I mean, we're really gonna have to. What is it? We play the Giants pretty soon, or isn't that
Luck
week
factor,
1?
Yeah, week 1 preseason.
So, I mean,
no, we play the Jets home week 1 in the season. Giants this Friday.
So I mean, it's really going to be interesting to see what happens this Friday with the Giants. Saquon Barkley, he did have a tweak. He apparently tweaked his leg. So, I mean, hopefully we do get to see him. And hopefully as a fantasy fan, wanting to see what Saquon Barkley is going to do. But as a Lion fan, I am kind of worried what he could do against this defense. But I still have to keep in mind, it's just preseason.
We did have a glaring tackle that resulted in a penalty, and it was against the Lions player. He got tackled, and an Oakland player ran his head right into him, and I just saw that play, okay? Now, it favored the Lions, okay? It was a flag thrown on Oakland, and it favored the Lions. But I saw that play, and walking away from it, I just was, making snacks, sitting in the kitchen, and I was going, this is why my passion for football is not as great as it was. Now, it's still significantly strong. I'm watching a preseason game late on Friday, but I'm going, dude, this Oakland defender is running full bore into the line to try to make a tackle. He's trying to do his job. And how hard now is it for a defender to adjust his body with Amir Abdullah? They said Amir Abdullah is like almost 3 inches off the ground. He's that small. How on earth is he going to go and make a tackle without getting a penalty in today's NFL? I didn't like it.
Lead with your shoulder.
But
these are amazing athletes. This is what you do. This is your job. Figure it out.
It's impossible. I feel like it's
not
impossible.
impossible. It's impossible for you, yeah, because you're not a pristine athlete. These guys, this is their job. They can figure this out.
What everybody says is when
You're supposed to lead with your shoulder. You're not supposed to lead with your head.
Yeah, but at the same time, what everybody says is to teach proper defense, you want to teach these guys to just react. How much thinking do they got to do to really effectively make a tackle? You got to lead with your shoulder. You can't get juked out. You got to keep your head up. You can't hit with your helmet. You can't do this. And the other variable that I don't think you saw was Amir Abdullah was down in the ground, and to the point where if the guy had his shoulders up, he'd be like an inch off the ground on his knees. It's almost impossible, I think, physiologically for that play, for that defender to not tackle that way. And it was a nice hit. It was solid. Nobody was hurt. Nobody was concussed. I just feel like...
How do you know they weren't concussed?
Well...
there could be concussions on every single play.
Amir Abdullah was still playing afterwards. He didn't look like his belt was wrong.
Yes, but...
I feel like that play...
That's why there's
you know what? I'm just telling you,
players in the NFL.
I don't like the rule. I feel like, look, you want to solve the problem? You've already paid out $1 billion to the former players who were under the old system, old regime. It's simple. You and I go to rides. You and I go to places where they go, okay, look, you got a kid now. You're soon going to take him to a bounce house. You're going to sign a waiver that says, hey, if your kid breaks his arm, you can't sue us. Period. And you're going to be like, what? Yeah, you'll see waivers that'll be like, if your kid, is decapitated or loses an arm or loses a leg, you absolve said bounce house place of any damage. You're like, well, what's going to happen here? So you look at that and you go, just have all the new players post-2018 sign a waiver. You're playing a man's game. You're playing NFL football. Should you develop CTE?
You're talking about two very, very different things. You're talking about going to a bounce house where an accident could happen.
Yeah.
An accident that you can pretty easily recover from.
Yeah.
And you're then talking about it's
a sport that
neurological disease that you as a psychologist know the effects of. It's not as easy as, hey, sign a waiver and you absolve the NFL from the effects that you may, gain from or may have.
But part of the reason I like football is the violent tackles, the hitting, the part where these guys prove their manhood and the violence of the game. I like that part of the game. And I do think the players are starting to say, you know what? Defenders should speak up and say, we can't play defense. It's almost impossible.
And the players they're not going to play this game anymore. They're smart, or they're going to want to get paid more money.
Yeah, I think that's what should happen.
Especially in the NFL, which is ridiculous. Though, with all the non-guaranteed
I think what's going to happen, I think this year, that flag will be thrown at a critical time and somebody's going to complain and it's going to swing back to be evaluated. There's no way it sticks more than 2 years without being seriously looked at, because any defender who's worth a damn is going to come out and say, I can't play my position. It's actually more dangerous for me to be thinking all the time, shoulders up, this way, move this way, don't touch, don't do that. He's like, look, I just got to be able to react and play solid football. And if it's helmet to helmet and it's intentional and you lead with the crown head to head and it's one of those intentional plays, you call it. But everything else is fair game.
To be like this is like brain surgery that they're doing. This is their only thing that they do. This is their job. If there's some new way that somebody needs to operate, if a surgeon, hey, you have to do this, and you're like, oh, well, they have to react. Oh, I can't do this. That's your job. That's what you're paid to do. This is what defenders are paid to do. They just need to figure it out. Or do away with the rules. Or you have to go to complete anarchy. Pay these people massive amounts of money. Because they're not going to just sign a waiver and say, hey, I'm cool with getting CTE. A $15 million contract with only $3 million guaranteed. They're not going to do that.
If the NFL allowed them to tackle, allowed the big hits to return. Remember ESPN had that feature Jacked Up? That was great. That was my go-to segment every week, was to see the nastiest hit of the week, and that's gone. And that was only maybe 6 years ago, where every single week at the end of one of the preview shows, they'd have a segment where a dude got lit up, and then the announcers would scream, jacked up! And that was something I like to see. I like to see the tackling of the game, and I feel like it's being legislated out. You can't grab, you can't touch, you can't defend, and you can't basically tackle anybody without some sort of flag taking place, and it's just too subjective.
It's not as easy as you just saying.
It's not easy, but I think if you made it a way where the guys could actually react instead of think all the time, I think you make the game safer because it's going to be complicated where these defenders
If their
don't
reaction, though, is to lead with the head, how is that safer?
I don't think the reaction is going to be lead with the head. I think the reaction is going to be to tackle
But
with
we
the
already
shoulders.
know. You said that on that play.
That tackle looked clean to me. That tackle looked clean. It looked like his head hit the shoulder, then moved up to the head.
Maybe 99 out of 100 times, that would be fine. And then that 100th time, it goes in, and you have Ryan Shazier, and the guy's paralyzed.
Okay. Did you pay attention at all to pregame stuff, anthem talk regarding what some NFL players did? The line stood hand in hand.
You lost that conversation.
No, I didn't. We just disagree. We disagreed. I'm right, but I think that...
You're not right.
Okay, you think
you just want what you want.
You think this rule will not be debated and it'll stick for the next 5 years?
It'll be debated, obviously.
Will it stick? Will this rule stick?
It'll be debated and it'll stick. It'll be changed.
Okay.
It's going to stick because player safety isn't going to go away.
Okay, we'll see how this goes. We'll see how this progresses. I think the tide's turning a little bit with more negativity. Higher-ups in the game are complaining. Dignitaries like the doc are complaining.
They're too worried about people kneeling for the anthem.
What do you think about the Lions? I think they were very classy. They interlocked arms. They all stood. And I think it was one of those situations which, in that game, Detroit versus Oakland, only Marshawn Lynch took a knee. I was proud of the Detroit Lions for doing it that way. I feel like everybody showed unity, and it was nice to see the Lions stick together.
I'm just so tired of the national anthem talks. It's beyond. It's ridiculous. I'm tired, and I don't want to get political, but it's... Yeah. Trump it's ridiculous.
He's keeping it going, huh?
It's continuing, and this isn't about like they're two sides are talking, and neither of them are hearing what either are saying, and one is clearly wrong. Like they're putting words in the other side's mouth, and it's very frustrating to watch. And I just if it affects football at all, it's gonna really piss me off.
Yeah, Jason, after I talk about one of our great sponsors, Podomatic, we're going to talk about the use of Matthew Stafford because people noticed they did react to not seeing him on the field. And if you look to the Patriot way, the way they used Tom Brady in the preseason, we may not be seeing a whole heck of a lot of Matthew Stafford this preseason, and we'll debate and we'll talk about whether that's the right decision. But I definitely want to give love to our host site, Podomatic. We've been recording since 2013, and we've recorded now 1,000 podcasts. And thankfully, we've been able to have a great host site so that all listeners across the country and even overseas can find us. I mean, now the Detroit Sports Podcast Network is a credentialed media outlet. We go cover the Detroit Tigers. We cover a lot of the major events in town, a lot of college football. And you got to have a great host site. So I do see all these new podcasts popping up. Definitely consider Podomatic.com if you're looking to start a brand new project. So, Jason, we didn't see Matthew Stafford. So it's fine. We got a chance to see the competition for the backup.
Matt Castle and Jake Rudock.
And it was not, I think we both were left underwhelmed by that. But if you look at how the Patriots have utilized Tom Brady, you don't get a chance to see a whole heck of a lot of Tom Brady in the preseason, especially as he got older. Now, you didn't see him on the road. You didn't see Matthew Stafford. There's a chance you might only see him very limited throughout the course of the preseason, maybe even 3 series or less in totality. How did you feel about not seeing Stafford, 1? And 2, if he is used sparingly, would you be against it because it is a new regime? Don't you want to see a little bit of what Stafford does with new philosophies from Matt Patricia? Maybe not offensively with the offensive coordinator, but maybe Matt Patricia wants to see what a flea flicker looks like. Maybe Matt Patricia and Jim Bob Cooter want to see Stafford in a 2-minute situation late in the game this early in the season. Do you care about any of that? Or you say, you know what? Matthew Stafford and that offense is just going to be a continuation. He knows Jim Bob Cooter's offense now left to right. He knows it completely thoroughly. It'll be okay if he's not on the field throughout the length of the preseason. I feel like it could be a mistake because I think it's important to get to start the season off on the right foot, and a little bit more, repetitions can never really hurt.
When I think with my head, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with him not really seeing the field too much because Matt Stafford is at a point in his career where I'm not sure if he's gonna get a ton out of these reps because running a vanilla offense, I mean, you're not running what you're actually going to be running come week 1. So what I think is more important for Matt Stafford at this point is that he's rock solid in what he knows for this offense and that they get everything that they need to get done during training camp and the practices. and then he has the rapport with with his offensive line, with his wide receivers, with his running backs, that he gets all that hammered out. I don't need to see that on the field. But I think with my heart, obviously when Matt Castle trotted out there for the first series, I was deflated because I wanted to see Matt Stafford, because he's my guy. I love Matthew Stafford. Like, that's a guy that I would love to hang out with and be best friends with. So yeah, I want to see Matt Stafford a little bit. But that's the Lion fanatic coming out of me.
Yeah, we want to see him. I do think we'll get a chance to see him more at home. I don't think they would limit him in the first preseason game at home versus the Giants, because they got a solid defense. They can do some work. And also, in the preseason, you can just work on certain play sets. You don't have to be exactly effective. I mean, if he throws an interception, it's not the end of the world. I know everybody calls it, the day after a preseason game overreaction Friday or overreaction Monday, but I do think it's important to have a reaction to see what's going on. And it's important to kind of look at and say, okay, let's say, for example, they just want to see what Matthew Stafford does in this situation to this guy. Maybe they want to see what the connection of Stafford and Galladay looks like in real live game situations, because it's going to be important. Maybe you just call him out there for like 2 series where every 2 out of 3 plays he hands it off or checks it to a running back, super safe, and then just 1 play where you just call it out and see how far can Stafford throw it, how far can Galladay go in a 50-50 ball, and who wins that battle, just to see it on tape. And I do think it's important to put stuff on tape, especially in a new regime, especially with a new head coach that wants to see what these players got.
I think I think I'm comfortable with what he's got, the rapport he's got with the wide receivers. The one person that I would actually be interested to see what he's going to do with is what he does with Kerryon Johnson, because LeGarrette Blount out there is, it's probably going to be a running down, or he's just going to be in there for pass blocking. And you know what you got with Theo Riddick in, being a pass catching running back. I want to see what he does with Kerryon Johnson. And I would like him, I want to know that relationship is growing and that he's getting more comfortable, because ideally, Kerryon Johnson does become the 3-down running back, or your main guy, and that you don't really have to rely on Theo Riddick as much, that Kerryon Johnson becomes that kind of sort of every down back. So that would be who I'd want to see out there, what he does on running downs, on some passing downs, and just see what kind of connection they have.
Yeah, I see that potentially Matt Patricia is doing things his way. It looks similar to the Patriot way. He was okay on the sidelines. Did you kind of peek into a little bit about what he was doing with the all-black attire? It was curious to see that he won his challenge. He seemed like he was, a little bit into the game. He was cussing a little bit here and there, was observing. He looked like this dark, shadowy, big figure on the sidelines. He looks like a head coach. I was kind of overall, game one in terms of his demeanor and what he looks like, I kind of have the vibe that he at least knows what's coming. He knows what to expect. Like, you can see, like, okay, I'm going to take this play and put it on the film. We're going to organize this way. It just kind of seems at this point he looks the part, and he looks organized, and he looks like, okay, the team at least could count to 11. There weren't that, yes, there were a lot of penalties, but they looked organized in a lot of their sets.
Yeah, Matt Patricia, he looks the part. And I don't really think we're going to get a good sense of what kind of head coach he is until the season starts. And I am curious to what that first head coaching moment's going to be. Is it going to be a big play that, he just blows up on? Or is he going to, what kind of head coach really is he going to be? Because, if he is, I think this first game, it's his first, official game as a head coach. So I don't think we got a real good grasp of what he's going to be throughout the season and what kind of leader he's going to be. So that's what I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to do. Is he going to be fiery? Is he going to be a little bit more reserved? And, I'm waiting for him to turn the hat backwards.
Turn the hat backwards and look the part, huh? I'm waiting for him to kind of get that lionized look. There'll be a play. It won't happen probably until maybe game 6 or 7, where he'll just look and go, what the heck is going on? Maybe Amir Abdullah will catch it, go right down to the 1-yard line, step out of bounds, or something will happen in which he'll go, what the heck's going on? But I don't think he'll be lionized fully. He'll have some looks like, this isn't football. People don't make these plays. But in the end, the luck factor has to shake out for the Lions to have success. And hey, maybe, it starts with Saquon Barkley tweaking a little hamstring ahead of a game. Maybe a couple players, maybe Darnold looks terrible in game 1 versus the Lions in real life competition because he's definitely getting a lot of hype preseason wise. Maybe some luck breaks our way in terms of who gets hurt here and there. But like I said, you saw Minnesota. They look lethal. They look good. Did you watch anything around the league?
I peeked in just a little bit.
I saw Minnesota. I saw Green Bay. I saw teams in the division, and Minnesota looks the part. They look good. And I don't know. Some people are saying that they think that Case Keenum's going to do better than Kirk Cousins. That's a terrible take. I think that.
Hey, remember what happened when the Lions went 4-0 in their preseason?
Exactly. Do you remember what happened when Cleveland went 4-0 last year in the preseason?
Yeah, I do.
Over. So, yeah, no, I understand. And to wrap it up, like we said, in the preseason, there are things you look for. The probable proper way to evaluate is you look at certain players and what they're doing. You look at, their progression from game 1 to game 3, how they're doing. Are they staying healthy? Are they fitting into the scheme? What are the trends along the offense and defense? But yeah, you have to taper your reactions because it's very vanilla. It's very plain. But at the same time, with that, you should see some progress along the line of the offense. And so you should see from game to game, you should see that if Saquon Barkley does play, that there are attempts made to stop him. If it continues game 2 and into game 3, then you say, okay, game 1 was the starting point. Let's see if there's adjustments made. Let's see if there are things that change, and that's the proper way to evaluate it.
Absolutely. And Matt Patricia said himself that there's a ton of work to do. So yes. I look forward to seeing what he's going to do in this next preseason game.
One final thought before we get out of here and we say goodbye until next week. Did you follow along with that mentally ill person who stole a plane?
I peeked in a little bit.
What'd you think of it? I mean, it was a wild story that I think played out that Friday with the Detroit Lions game. I'm not sure if it was Friday or Thursday, but it was, at the end of last week, the story kind of came out that some individual out there, on the West Coast in Washington got into a plane and took it off. And people were like, wait a minute, there was an unauthorized flight that took off out of Seattle. And everyone's like, wait a minute, what? Is he going to fly into a building? What's going to happen? And then you started seeing audio clippings, and I posted one on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast of him chatting it up with air traffic control. And he was just so casual. He's like, oh, I wonder if I can take this thing and do some dips. And you got videos of it. It was such a surreal story in that I can understand a hijacking, while it would be surreal that it could happen in 2018. For somebody just to walk in a plane and then take it off and then be able to kind of joyride in an airplane, it's kind of freaky. I know me and Adam joke around about people who don't know how to do their jobs. I mean, we can't get an order right in fast food. Out of every 5 orders, we get 1 right, and we joke around about it. But not being able to secure a plane was weird. It was just a weird story all the way around.
It's not just some guy. The guy worked at the airport.
Yeah.
He was a baggage handler. So it is scary because the guy is just he's out there flying, and I mean, thankfully he didn't take it into, a plane, and, the loss of life was limited to him. And I mean, I read some of the excerpts on the back and forth between him and the air traffic control. Yeah, just like he obviously had some issues wrong with him. It would have been interesting to see if they actually did talk him down, because I think there was a point where he's like, yeah, I'll bring it back in. And I mean, he even admitted that, his family would be upset with him. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how
crazy
you come
story,
back
right?
It's crazy. You get the jets scrambled. So, I mean, it is at least good to see that, in this day and age, there are countermeasures that are happening quicker.
Whew, it was wild to kind of follow that story in 2018, and Twitter was going crazy. And it was one of those weird stories where it was going crazy on Twitter before it hit national news. I think it hit national news around midnight, 12:30, where they started to go into full 3-4 hour coverage. And so I stayed up and watched a little bit of the coverage. But holy cow. Next week, we'll talk a little bit more about Michigan State football. A little bit more is surfacing regarding Zach Smith, Ohio State. Now DJ Durkin is in the crosshairs over there at Maryland.
He's gone.
You think so?
He's done. There's no way he lasts. Reading some of the stuff that was going on in Maryland.
Trainer, yeah, you got to you got to fall on the sword.
Not good.
You got to fall on the sword in 2018. It's not only who you hire.
It's Maryland. It would be one thing if this was Ohio State. or Alabama. This is Maryland.
It's one thing to evaluate your performance, but when you have staff that are running the kids and having kids have seizures and there's no response to the hospital after 60 minutes, I think the time frame was in the neighborhood of like an hour and 15 minutes or an hour and a half after the first symptoms started to show, and you don't get the kid medical attention. That's very unusual. That's not medically ethical. That's not proper to try and cover up these type of things. And you hear that story regarding hazing and kids not reporting stuff, but for an organized football team in the NCAA, in the Big Ten, to allow these kind of practices is really crazy. And to further criticize DJ Durkin, those training practices, if that's what comes out to be factual and that's what's released, those things are militaristic and to the point of really traumatic and abusive. And it's not right.
It's awful. And I mean, we had the conversation with the tackling, and it is a man's sport. I think there's a line, and that went way over the line. Like you're not talking about hitting and trying to make reaction plays. This is abuse.
And so that's the tough part, is that can you actually achieve uniformity in the nutrition world? I mean, you get some nutritionists that say no sugar, no grains. You get others that say eat a bunch of meat. You get others that say don't eat meat. You get others that say drink 4 gallons of water. You get others that say drink, when you're thirsty. And so with the varying degree of trainers, it's so complicated. We all ask for some sense of uniformity, but it's super hard. But this looks extreme to the point of nonsense.
It's one thing to tell somebody to eat a certain way. It's another thing to
train till you kill someone.
Well, to do that and then to degrade people when they don't follow the restrictions.
The protocol.
Yeah.
All right, Jason, it was great to talk to you in studio. I still like talking to you over the phone. It's still fun to do a podcast with you. Now we're ramping up closer toward football. I mean, we just broke out 40 minutes of preseason talk, and it came like that. It was that fun, and I'm thankful that we have support for those that listen to us and those that share and tweet out and tweet to us, and it's a fun time, and I enjoyed talking to you. So great talk this week. I look forward to the next one.
All right, until next week, maybe I'll be on the phone, maybe I'll be here, but until then, he's John, I'm Jason. Peace out.
Okay, nice, idiot. You. Bye-bye.
Good day, sir. I said good day.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Loser.